We're hot. This is why I'm hot. This is why I'm hot. This is why. This is why. This is why I'm hot. I'm hot because I'm fly. You ain't because you not.
Rude.
This is why. This is why. This is why I'm hot.
You're hot because I'm not?
That's what they say in the song. This is why I'm hot.
This is why I'm hot. I'm hot because I'm fly. You ain't. Oh, I'm not fly.
I'm hot because I'm fly. You ain't because you not.
I thought you were saying I'm not hot because you're hot.
No, that's just rude.
That is rude.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Feast or Famine with the Youngs.
Subtitle, This whole thing is nonsense.
This whole thing is nonsense.
I think we've suddenly realized that we still don't know what we're doing because...
Yeah, this is the I don't know what I'm doing pod. If you hear that, it's not Alex farting.
That is not. If that's how my fart sounded, I would need to go see a doctor.
Yeah. Oh Lord, it was.
This one's already just so far off the rails. I don't even remember what the topic we're supposed to be talking about is. We should just rename it "Off the Rails with the Youngs." Or this could just be the topic of. This could just be the episode.
Off the rails.
We sit here and watch outside.
And then describe everything that's happening to the listeners.
That's happening.
That actually could be interesting because we're on Main Street and there's a lot happening.
But we'd have
not
to do
today
it
because everything's closed
on
today.
A Saturday.
Yeah, people watch.
That we don't actually have a wedding.
I love people watching.
People watch podcast with Feast or Famine with the Youngs.
You know, okay, so actually that's really interesting that you say that because I was just thinking about this the other day. And more recently it's happened this year because we've taken less weddings and we're able to enjoy a couple more Saturdays off than normal.
Be humans when everybody else are humans?
Yeah, it's very strange. Like, I am just so content sitting on a patio on a Saturday watching humans just do their thing and be humans because on a Saturday, otherwise, I'm shooting a wedding and watching humans do wedding stuff, or I'm busy and I am just working the wedding, obviously. So I love people watching. I think it's so interesting.
I thought you were going a different route with this.
No.
We'll forget that it's Saturday because, we don't keep track of days unless we have a wedding, which is usually Saturday. So we'll be like, hey, let's go to dinner. And we'll pull into Streets of St. Charles, for example.
Yeah.
And we're like, why are there so many people here? But then we realized, it's Saturday.
This is what people do on Saturday.
This is what people do on Saturdays.
I think it's just so interesting to people watch. I just don't get to do that on
We fly to Florida just to people watch. Every February.
That's not true. I was going to say this is true, but that isn't not true. That's just called a vacation.
It's only partially true.
Yeah, but you're making it sound weird.
Why is it weird?
We go to Florida just to watch the people in Florida. Just you Floridians out there.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's not true.
We love Florida. That's why we go there. But we end up sitting on a patio, like she just said.
It's because we
end up people watching.
We just eat the whole time. I come back by 500 pounds.
Eating people watch.
Okay. What are we talking about today? We actually do have a topic. I do not remember. Shut up.
What was it about? Oh, yep, I remember.
Oh my goodness. Bear with us. When we don't have a guest, we're just off the rails.
Yeah, basically. It's you are the one that wanted to do this one. You should introduce it.
I forgot it.
See, that's why. And you got mad at me for forgetting. It's addiction.
Oh, the addiction to success, right? Or the addiction to achievement?
Achievement.
Yeah. Yeah. What? Okay, so boil it down. What does that mean?
Basically, it's the idea that you are so focused on being successful and achieving whatever goal it is that you set that you go so hard at it that everything else takes a back seat, including your mental health, your personal life, your family, your friends, all those things.
Yeah.
Which is not healthy at all.
Yeah. I think...
Which is what we talked about with the hustle culture episode.
Yeah, we did. I think, goal setting is super important, right? Especially if you're running a business, if you're not setting goals, what are you doing? You need some sort of path to know where, what you're doing, why, what your why is, what you're trying to achieve with what you're doing, whether it's a personal or a business goal. And, side note, I would say my best advice would be to always have personal and business goals every year. We do that every year. So I don't know where I was going with this, but I think, like when you're setting a goal and you're working just tunnel vision to that goal, and nothing else, like you said, nothing else matters, but you have an interesting perspective about goal setting.
In general, goal setting, it
not
is,
an interesting perspective, but like
it is and it isn't about this same topic.
Okay.
Along this topic, I think is more along the lines of what makes hustle culture toxic to people and why it has that toxic, what's the word I'm looking for?
Nature, feeling, vibe. I'm just going to shoot him out.
What am I?
Connotation
No, it's like
to it, or?
When you think about something to have a specific, like,
attachment?
No.
Oh, Lord.
Pause. Impression.
Okay.
Like you have an impression of something.
Yeah.
That's not the word I'm thinking
Yeah,
of.
the impression that hustle culture is toxic, but we've already talked about that.
Right. Where I was going with that, gosh, off the rails, is that's where that comes from.
Yeah.
Is the addiction to achieving these goals to the point that people are just headfirst in with zero care about anything else in their life.
Yeah.
Which there is a time and a place for that. But even when you are in that like mode where you're trying really hard to get to this one specific goal, you have to have that time management, and you can't let other things fall away that are also vital to staying successful even after you achieve that.
Yeah. I wonder if it's like this just like popped into my head, but I do this exercise internally sometimes where I've been, just in general, really intentional about like, what's the right word? Does this add value to my life, or is this adding to my peace, or is it taking away my peace, or is it taking away my energy? Is this
You're focusing on your mental health.
So I asked this question like, is this valuable to me? Is it adding to this, or is it taking away my energy? Is it sucking the energy out of me? And I wonder if the people who are addicted to achieving this one goal, if everything that comes their way, they're like, well, does this add to the goal? Is this only going to get me further to the goal, or is it going to take me away from the goal? And it's a one-track mindset.
Yes, I think it is 100% where this comes from, and it's, well, not where this comes from, but it's a byproduct of this.
Yeah.
And they're not focusing on, does this add value to my life? It's, does this add value to me achieving this goal?
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. But you were telling me earlier today, like, when you're setting goals, you have the big goal, right? The biggest goal.
Yep.
But within those goals, you have minuscule milestones.
Micro
goals. Thank you. That you're trying to achieve. And I mean, you can take it from there.
That's only partially what I was getting at. So it's just really about strategic goal setting, but it's not really so much about the addiction to achieving those goals. It's more so about just setting the goals in the first place. When you set your goals, you say, hey, I want to create $1 million business. Mm-hmm. So you create micro goals to get you to that $1 million business. Hey, I want to make $250,000. Next year, I'm going to double it and make $500,000. Mm-hmm. Then I'm going to get to $750,000. And then, hey, I made $1 million. And subconsciously, what happens is you are pushing yourself, and you hit that first goal and you're like, oh, I'm so excited. Then you get to that second goal. Oh, I'm so excited. And it just motivates you to go to the next step. You hit that third goal. You're like, oh, I'm almost to $1 million. And then you keep pushing. But the closer you get to that $1 million, subconsciously, no, you don't do this on purpose, you slow down. You're not pushing as hard because you're almost there. So you get to $900,000 one year and you're like,
it's not good enough. I'm not there.
No, it's basically I'm there.
Oh, okay. So you round up.
So you round up. Hey,
Okay.
I'm basically $1 million company.
Yeah.
But the fact that you set your goal to $1 million is what caused you to do that. It's like a backwards way of looking at goal setting.
So what is...
It caused you to not hit the goal.
So what would you say to do the counterpart of that?
Set goals that are unachievable, but still within the realm of possibility.
Say that again?
Set goals that are achievable.
You said unachievable first.
Sorry, set goals that are seemingly unachievable,
Okay.
but still within the realm of possibility. So, for example,
Yeah.
don't set a goal that says, I'm going to make $1 billion in 1 year.
Okay.
Because if we're being real honest, you're probably not going to do that.
Okay.
What you can do if you're trying to get to $1 million,
$1 million or $1 billion?
$1 million.
Okay, you said $1 billion just a minute ago.
If your goal,
Okay.
like your real goal,
Okay.
we're sitting at the $1 million mark is what we're talking about.
Okay.
You want to make $1 million? Don't set a goal for $1 million. That's what I'm getting at.
Okay.
Set it higher, but don't set it so high that it's not realistic.
Okay. Yeah.
Don't say, I'm going to make $1 billion, because you're not going to make $1 billion. It's going to deter you. You're going to think about it, and you're going to be like, and you're not going to take it seriously.
Yeah.
Subconsciously, you will not take that seriously. Mm-hmm. But if you say, I'm going to make $5 million, mm-hmm. I want to make $10 million. Let's say $10 million. I want to make 8 figures.
Okay.
Then you hustling to get to that $1 million mark will feel like nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the number depends on your industry. They're just arbitrary numbers.
Okay.
Let's talk about it in the sense of photo video world. Okay. Everywhere we see, people are always talking about this.
Hitting 6 figures.
Educators are selling the shit out of their products based on this one thing, and it's becoming a 6-figure photographer or videographer.
Okay, real quick. Guys, you can tell when Alex gets really into something because he starts really enunciating the ends of his words, like shit and things like that. He gets he just really enunciates.
Sorry.
Anyway, go ahead.
Sorry, I've kind of like a sour taste for people that sell in our industry as a way, and I'm probably going to get shots fired for this because whatever. If you're selling a product that's and you're saying, learn how to make 6 figures, it's not that difficult.
It's really not.
It's second year in full-time business, we hit 6 figures.
Yeah.
It's really not that hard. But it's the same idea of we set a goal. We want to hit 6 figures. Mm-hmm. We barely hit 6 figures that year. Freaking barely. Mm-hmm. And it was only because of print sales that pushed us over the edge.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we wouldn't have hit it. Mm-hmm. So.
My first year?
Our first full year.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
So and this goes along with what I just said, because we set that goal for, we want to make $100,000 this year. Mm-hmm. We want to make 6 figures. We made $90-something thousand that year. Mm-hmm. Because we were so close. We basically made $100,000.
Yeah. So what else is there to look forward to then, right? Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then during COVID, the year of COVID, I told like 2 or 3 people that we network with, that we always talk business with, kind of our accountability people per se.
Yeah.
I said, I want to make $250,000 in 2020.
Mm-hmm. Was this pre or post COVID was a thing?
This was just, I literally said this to these people.
Like in February?
In February.
Yeah.
Before
COVID was
COVID
announced.
actually happened.
Yeah.
But I said, our goal is to make $250,000 this year. Mm-hmm. We hadn't even scratched 200,000 yet. We'd come close, but because I made it higher than what the actual number I wanted to hit was, I wanted to hit 200. Mm-hmm. In the midst of COVID, even with the pandemic, we hit like 222.
Yeah. Guys, we're giving it all away.
I'm
we are an open book. We're an open book.
So like, that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
And I have 2 very opposing examples that we physically went through.
Yeah.
That prove that, you need to set realistic goals beyond what you actually want to hit.
Yeah. So you're saying when you're setting goals, don't have a one-track mind to like the ultimate big honking goal. You need to...
Don't limit yourself is what I'm saying.
Don't limit yourself. That's good. Yeah.
Don't set limiting goals. Like, if you're in an industry that you can feasibly make $1 million,
So you're like, so if a photographer is out there and let's say they're just getting started, and they're like, my goal by the end of this year is to book a $2,000 wedding. You think that is too low, or you think that is limiting? Like, or you think that is limiting, or do you think that that's too high?
if they want to book I can't answer that because I need the strategy.
Okay.
So if they say they want to book a $2,000 wedding, then make that your middle package. Have a package that's $3,000.
Okay. So
have a package that's $4,000.
So it comes down to like the strategy behind goal setting.
Right. So like if you're in the construction industry is a really good example of this, depending on where you're at. I want to make $1 million this year. In a construction industry, that's a good goal. But that's easy.
Yeah.
If you do it right. So instead of saying,
because 2 houses easily could be $1 million. Two houses on it.
2 big jobs.
Yeah.
But in general, outside of construction, if you're in an industry that it is feasible to make $1 million in a year, set your goal higher than that.
Yeah.
Because if you push yourself, you're going to do it. Because that's how it is. It's the same way with the photo industry.
Yeah.
It's very feasible to hit $100,000. Lots of people do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would also, correlate that back to, this is going to be a button topic, but education, and kind of coincides with the addiction to hit this one goal, but then also the addiction to education that you think will get you to that goal. I've gone to this workshop, I've done this mentorship, and I've done this and this and this. I've spent tens of thousands of dollars on education to get me to this one goal, but you're not there yet. And the
ROI is not there. So okay. So the prime,
do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I would say that if you are wondering if this is you, the best way to look at it is what is your ROI on the money that you have spent on this education versus what you've made. How much have you
with what you've learned?
Business?
Well, with what you've learned from that education.
From the time you started that education, how much money have you spent, and how much money has your business made?
Okay. Yeah.
If that money is breaking even or negative or barely more, then you're probably addicted to education. Yeah.
And, I would say some people, let me back up, and I'm not shitting on education.
No, you should always be educating yourself.
We are educators. So like this would be hypocritical of me. But you should always be educating yourself and growing and learning.
Growing is the key word there.
So we'll go back to that, and I know where you're going to go with that. But education is so important, period. I believe in education. And in fact, I will say, if you have never spent money on education, you are also doing yourself a disservice, and your clients a disservice. You should be getting a mentor. And I'm not talking about you're in a Facebook group and people are chit-chatting back and forth and giving advice. That's not a mentorship. That's not education.
Find someone who's been there, done that for years, or has lots and lots of experience or lots of value to add.
You need to be getting educated, and you
pay
need
them.
Yeah, you need to be growing in your craft and in your business and things like that.
Or,
But what I will say is, some people do this to the extent of they are just spending all this money to get all this knowledge from all of these different types of people, which I can see being good. However, if you are not implementing those things into your business and actually seeing that return on your investment, you are wasting your time, you're wasting your money, and you are addicted to education to achieve a goal that you may not even know what you're trying to achieve, because you're just there to
educating. Get the information that you've probably
already know.
At this point, you've been given the information multiple times.
Yeah.
Because there's only, I was gonna say an analogy you wouldn't have liked. But it's an analogy.
Well, let's go for it, and let's see if we have to cut it out.
Multiple ways to skin a cat.
Okay, well, yeah.
Isn't that the analogy? Have you heard that?
Yes. I think it's skin a fish, but yeah.
Fillet a fish.
Filet o fish.
Skin a deer. Anyway.
There's only one way to skin a deer. I've done it before.
You can do it the right way or the wrong way. Anyway, What I'm getting at is there's only so many ways you can say the same information.
Yep.
So if you're going to education after education after education, eventually you're going to get the same information.
And my question for you, for the listener who is like feeling conviction right now, my question to you would be, what is your goal with this?
And what have you implemented from the knowledge that you've already gained?
Like, I'm just genuinely curious about like all, and I'm kind of hitting on this kind of hard just because I see it so often. What is your goal that you're trying to achieve by doing all of these conferences and workshops and mentorships and things like that? Like what's the goal? Is it networking? Because there's a way to network without having to pay for it. There's also big ways to network that you do have to pay for, like Engage and like that, but that's like a different thing.
See, that's not really so much an addiction to education, because the people that go over and over again are there to solidify their connections within that industry.
Yeah.
And you have to go multiple times to actually
that's why I'm
get
saying
in that world.
That's why I'm saying Engage is like a whole different like beast of its own.
Right.
But just for the listener out there that's like, oh shit, that might be me. Just have a self-reflection moment and be like, what is my actual goal? And I want to encourage you to sit down and actually write out your goals and your micro goals. And like what Alex said, put a goal out there that when you think it, you're like,
wow, that's crazy.
That's crazy. But when you actually take yourself out of the equation and you think about the industry that you're in as a whole and just the world in general, it's probably far more achievable than you think that it is.
Right.
Yeah.
But don't set it so high that you're like, nah, that's not going to happen. Like,
yeah.
There's no actual wedding vendor is going to make $100 million in a year.
Yeah.
Let's just be real.
I mean, here, like going back to the Engage thing, here is a pretty...
Unless you're Ray Roman and you're booking $100,000 weddings.
Yeah. Here's a pretty good example, I think, of what you're coming at, Alex. So we have a goal to go to Engage by next year, by like end of next year.
The next time they have one that's not sold out.
Yeah. That's probably actually the more achievable goal here. But my goal isn't, I want to second shoot for Jose Villa because I went to Engage and I connected with him. Let's be very honest, that's probably an unrealistic goal.
To second shoot for Jose Villa?
Just by going to Engage.
One time, yeah, absolutely not.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I go to Engage.
You have to make quite an impression for him to probably.
Yeah, but our goal to just go to Engage is an achievable one, but it's also like a tough one because it's very expensive. So like, what I'm saying is the goal of like, I'm going to go and work with Jose Villa or Marcy Bloom. Probably not. Like, that's probably not.
Yeah.
So
you're
let's
not
like
necessarily get FaceTime with some of those people because they're
people. So let's reel it back to, a more achievable goal, like just going to Engage and being happy with that. I think that there is
the bigger goal would be, I want to go to Engage to solidify myself in this industry, which means I need to go to multiple engages, not just this first one.
Yeah.
So the fact that we have to do that, one's going to become more attainable, and we're just going to, that's more like, I wouldn't call that necessarily like business goal as much as like budgeting or something like that.
What do you mean?
Because the goal would be, I want to book $100,000 Ray Roman wedding.
Okay, yeah. But we're talking about in all aspects of goals, any goal, a weight loss goal.
I don't have a goal to go to Engage because you can go to Engage. You just have to pay for it and get there and get a ticket before they sell out.
Yeah.
That's
the
not
goal
really a
is
goal.
to get a ticket before they sell out. That's the goal.
It's like you wanted Morgan Wallen tickets, so you sat online the second that they were available and you got tickets.
Yeah.
On the floor.
I did. On floor seats.
Humble brag. If he doesn't have to take more
Don't even
rest,
put it out there. Don't even put it into existence.
He will be fully healed.
Yes.
By that concert.
Okay.
Anyway. Back to goals.
So back to like the addiction of.
Anyway, what I'm getting at is, so let's just assume somebody has set proper goals and they're a photographer, and instead of saying, I want to make $100,000 this year, let's say that they're already relatively established. They're not super new. They're booking multiple weddings a year. So $100,000 is achievable easily for them. So they're like, okay, make $150,000 next year. They're going to do that. When you find that you become addicted to that achieving that goal is when you start focusing every ounce of your energy on that. How do we help somebody that is listening, that is in the midst of that, get out of that, or to still push for that goal without getting to that addiction side?
Do you have an answer, or am I supposed to answer that?
Do you have an answer?
I mean, I would say not having just that one goal. Like that, for me, that would be the answer to that.
Like instead of just business goals, you need to have personal goals.
Yeah. I would have personal goals that help me grow in my mindset, and in my personal life as well, because ultimately, and we have talked about this a billion times, your mental health and just who you are and your physical form will ultimately push you and excel you further if you're taking care of yourself.
Right. And burnout is inevitable when you are hyper focused on the one thing.
Yeah. And I think, if you're too focused on that goal, it could in fact, push you further behind if you're being like
you're just all in on it.
Yeah.
I would say that when you are like, this addiction to success has so many negatives that come into play. And we've already mentioned a couple of them. Like your personal life takes a hit. Your mental health will end up taking a hit. Your physical health will probably end up taking a hit too.
Yeah.
You get burnt out. That's ultimate. You're going to get burnt out. Like there's no, you're probably going to end up diving down the hole of imposter syndrome multiple times.
Oh yeah.
Because if you're addicted to success, you're also watching what everybody else is doing. And because you're so hyper focused on it, you're going to start comparing yourself to what they're doing. And if you're doing it well enough, and maybe I shouldn't be doing this. And
right.
So like every negative part of mental health and business will happen or can happen and probably will happen if you become too hyper addicted to achieving these goals.
Yeah.
Without
it's self-sabotage, honestly. Self-sabotage.
Right.
Yeah. I would say...
Why do you think so many multimillionaires are unhappy?
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Yeah, because they're like, ooh, I'm going to be a millionaire. I'm going to buy a yacht. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And they
do it.
They are living the life that many of us would be like, wow, I want that. But they're so emotionally drained and just unhappy and icky with themselves.
Right. They're not happy. You just said simply, they're not happy.
Yeah.
But from an outside perspective, you're like,
look at all that stuff.
You are living large.
Yeah.
As a multimillionaire, sometimes billionaire.
Yeah.
But you're not happy?
Yeah.
How? And then that's where the whole money doesn't buy happiness thing comes from.
Which we've talked about that before, and we should talk about it again.
But I think it's more along the lines of your mental health.
Yeah.
If you do it the wrong way.
Yeah. So you're saying that like, and we're talking about just like goal setting with business primarily, but when you have a goal that you're trying to reach, if you're not also having personal goals that keep you mentally and physically healthy, then that big business goal may not mean shit, honestly.
You may get there, but
how happy are you going to be that you're there? Yeah. Yeah. There's a quote that Casey Neistat used to say,
he probably still says it, but we don't see him anymore.
I loved Casey Neistat. I loved his vlogs. And he is just a genius business owner, a genius creative. Anyway, I could talk about him all day, but
maybe we should try to get him on the podcast.
He says a quote, and it's one of my favorite things that I've seen. I'm not sure if he created it or not. I just know that I saw this from him. But he says, once a goal is achieved, you go on to bigger and better goals. And
with
every goal achieved, you go on to bigger and better goals, something like that. But I really resonate with that because I feel like I used to get very pigeonholed into, I want to achieve this one goal and I feel like I've made it. First off, personally, I think if anyone ever says I've made it, you definitely haven't made it.
You're missing the point.
You either need to find your humble bag and pick it back up, or you're not actually where you think you need to be. You're distracting me.
I'm finding a quote that's relevant. Alex Ramosi actually just posted this like 6 hours ago.
Okay, hold on. So I feel like nobody actually really makes it. And maybe you're like, okay, well, Taylor Swift, she's made it. I'm not talking about like celebrity. I'm talking about like where you want to be in your life.
Should always be.
It's a very personal thing. And like for us as wedding photographers and videographers, I look at people like Jose Villa, and I'll be honest, my instant thought is like, Jose Villa's made it. Like he did Justin Bieber's wedding, Paris Hilton's wedding. Like it does not get any better than that. But there's nobody that's going to be the next Jose Villa. Like it's just not that. So having that mindset of I haven't made it until I do an A-list celebrity wedding is not a fair thing for me to say, because I'm always going to be growing. I'm always going to be learning.
But you might get there, but that's not the point.
And Jose Villa would say himself, I know he would, that he's done these things, but he still probably doesn't feel like he's made it because he knows that there's still more to learn. And so going back to the Casey Neistat quote, we set these goals and we get there and we're working hard to achieve this goal and we're like, hell yes, I just did it. Let's go on to the next thing. And that helps us grow in our business and our mindset, and ultimately just in our lives, because we're continuing to do bigger and better things for us and for the people around us.
It's basically about, instead of falling in love with the end result, falling in love with the journey it took to get there.
Exactly.
Because if you're in love with the constant need and desire to get to that goal, then you're gonna hit the goal and be bored.
Yeah.
So you're always gonna be wanting to one up yourself, and just when you fall in love with the journey, you're gonna continue to grow forever.
Learning to love the process.
And Alex Ramosi just posted this earlier today, and it goes along the lines of this whole fall in love with the journey thing. He said, the best games in life can't be won, only played. You don't win at marriage. The point of marriage is to keep the marriage going. You don't win at health. The point is just to stay healthy. You don't win at business. The point is to stay in business and keep the game going. So the second the game is over, you're done.
Yeah.
It stops. You don't want it to stop.
Right.
If the business stops, the business is non-existent anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
The only reason I would want a business to stop is if I'm getting a
multi-billion
multi-billion-dollar buyout that allows me to stop and I can go do another business or something.
Yeah. Yeah. I 100%
because I love
agree.
the journey.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, it is truly all about just learning to love the process. And that's a hard thing to do. I mean,
I think actually circling finally back to the end, we finally got there, I think.
Yeah.
When you fall in love with the journey, you're not so hyper-focused on the goal that it becomes your addiction.
There you go. Guys, sometimes this podcast is us talking through a topic to help us get back
to the main point.
To the main point.
We got there, though.
We got there, though. Can you say that again? Oh, there goes Matt.
He's probably going to stop in.
Yeah.
If you fall in love with the journey, then what did I say?
Uh-oh.
When you fall in love with the journey, you can't be so hyper-focused.
Uh-oh. When you fall in love with the journey. Okay.
When you fall in love with the journey, it allows you to not be so hyper-focused on the end goal that you become addicted to getting there.
Boom. Mic drop.
See, sometimes I just say these things and they just come off the cuff. And if we weren't recording them, I wouldn't know what I said.
Yeah.
Because that's how my brain works. I'm like, boom, word vomit. It makes sense. It's good. I wish I remember what I said.
Yeah. For those listeners that, we really, let me pause that thought. We really should do a poll and see like who listens to our podcast for educational purposes, who listens to our podcast to shoot the shit with us, and things like that, because this would be helpful for that. But for the people out there because I know that there are people who listen to podcasts for like mental health and like education and
life
things like that.
Life coaching with the youngs.
Alex, you can't do life coaching because that was your ick, babe.
That's the joke.
Okay. I'm like, you cannot say that. Yeah, it did go over my head. But for the people that are like, okay, well, help me set goals, or how do I set tangible, achievable, good goals for my business? Can you give like a very simple, like,
for your business?
Yeah, like verbal layout of like what that looks like. Just like, okay, here's where you start, and then you do this.
I would even say that it's not even so. Most of what we say and talk about on here isn't exclusive to business. Most of the concepts are very very, I wouldn't say exclusive because they're not. They're very geared toward business, but they're definitely excellent toward just life. So when it comes to setting a goal, it doesn't have to be a business goal. If you want to buy a house, you don't have to have a business to buy a house. In fact, it's actually harder to buy a house if you run a business.
Yeah.
But that's a different topic.
Yeah.
So if you're going to set a goal, have a game plan, set a goal that is slightly higher than what you actually want, and then go after it. But don't make the goal so far out there that it's unachievable, and in the back of your mind you're subconsciously saying, ha, yeah, right. And then once you have that, make a game plan, make micro goals to get there, and once you get there, celebrate for a minute and move on to the next one. And once you climb that ladder, make a new goal.
Yeah.
Once you buy that $200,000 house, buy the house, live in it for a little bit, but save up and build equity in that house to buy another house. That's $500,000.
Yeah. Yeah. You were talking a minute about this, slightly off topic, but not really. You were talking a minute about how like a lot of the things on this podcast that we talk about, and we're wrapping up here, this is why I bring it up, but a lot of the topics that we talk about are, I think, business forward. But we try to, apply just like life and everything in general, which is why we have one-off episodes of us just being ridiculous. But
that's
when
most
we,
of our life anyway.
yeah, but when we are talking about stuff with business, we also try to, keep that personal touch of like, life in general. And so, when we did our podcast, like back in, when did we start this podcast?
Whatever the first 2021,
I think. We weren't super serious with it. So some of those episodes are like in the vault, like they're out,
far different.
They're out and like, you can go listen to them, but they're a lot different than what they are now, I think. So I think that we need to revisit those episodes, but one of them, we talked a little bit about why we call it Feast or Famine. And I think that
we actually just did a podcast, if it's been out yet. We recorded one.
We don't know the order yet, but
that actually we touched a tiny bit on this, and I'm glad we did.
Yeah. So I think that this was a good opportunity to just talk about like why we call this Feast or Famine, what that really means. What does Feast or Famine mean? So the term Feast or Famine is used to describe an unpredictable nature of running a business.
Being self-employed, basically working for yourself.
Yes. So the term feast, obviously, like your
highest
of the highs. You're eating, you're absorbing, you're getting all the nutrients, you're killing it, you're thriving. And in a famine, it's a drought. It's dry.
You're not getting any work.
You're not getting any work. Nothing's happening.
You're like, hey, am I going to be able to pay my subcontractors? Hey, are we going to be able to put food on the table?
You're in
quite literally famine.
Yeah, you're in the thick of it. Like, it's bad. And it's the having periods of high demand and abundance, followed by periods of low demand and scarcity. I have this written down because this is just kind of like our overall view of like what Feast or Famine is about. And we talk about like the industry and how we run our business. And like I've said a million times, our business is very personal. So when we're talking about business stuff, I feel like it's very easily adaptable to just life in general, because our work is our life.
Well, and in life in general, you have those periods. I mean, everybody has those periods of like, life is great. I'm having the best time. Everything's going well. And then you have those times where things aren't going well.
Yeah.
You're struggling.
Yeah.
And I feel like now more than ever, especially with the way the economy has been, I feel like between 2020 and now, people have seen both extremes.
Oh, for
just
sure.
in life in general.
For sure. Yeah.
And I mean, we had our best year in business last year. And bookings this year have definitely taken a slow turn. And I think for the entire industry as a whole, it has been that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that, I mean, in general, life
Right.
has happened that way. So this is, I mean, a great time to bring up that topic and the fact that that's literally what we're talking about. And it is not just business.
Yeah. So then you start to kind of change your mindset and you shift to think about what are the next goals that we're going to have, you know?
How can I avoid this famine period?
Yeah. So, you know, I wanted to touch on that. I feel like, you know, people are like, well, why is it called Feast or Famine? And I thought that this was a good little episode to just kind of slide that in there.
30 plus episodes later.
Yeah. And we can like delve into that like a little bit more at a later date. But how did we even come up with this name? I think you came up with it.
I came up with it in 2020 before when I wanted to start a podcast.
Yeah.
And we didn't until 21. But yeah, I was like,
it's a genius name.
I had it in a note. I'm like, that's Feast or Famine. And then I did some Googling and all I could find was like actual like nonprofit charities that feed the people starving in third world countries.
Yeah.
So it was quite literally
famine. Yeah. So this podcast is just fully about the highs and the lows of running a business, and just living in life.
With the subtitle of life.
With the subtitle of just like trying to get through the day. Because sometimes just getting through the day is tough.
And once you get through the day, guess what?
There's a new day tomorrow.
There's a goal achieved. You got through the day.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a new day
we
coming ahead.
We call it a mini micro goal.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah. We're just rambling at this point.
Hopefully this one was helpful. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. Any finishing words for you, Mr. Young?
Don't call me Mr. Young. My dad's name's Mr. Young.
Okay.
I'm not come to terms with the fact that I'm over 30 yet. But I've been
when
there for a
people
while.
call you sir, do you get offended when they're like, excuse me, sir?
Maybe briefly, but then I realize that I literally call people sir all the time.
Yeah.
Even if they're younger than me.
I was called ma'am in the grocery store like a month ago, and I was like,
in my opinion, it's respectful. If I say sir to you, it's not because
yeah, but I'm not a ma'am. I'm a girl.
It's not because I think you're old. It's because I have respect for people.
Yeah, but like ma'am.
Yeah, well,
that gives me ick.
That's a whole different topic, but I feel like ma'am
I say ma'am. Okay.
I think ma'am in general versus sir can go one of two extremes, and that's it.
Okay, what is that?
You can say ma'am as in very respectful way to address a woman.
Or like sassy, thank you, ma'am.
Or like, yeah, well, hey there, ma'am. Like, it can be derogatory or negative, right?
But like, what if you're like in the grocery store and you're like trying to get by and you're like, oh, excuse me, ma'am.
That's respectful.
Okay.
But you said
that's what happened to me.
me.
That's what happened to me. Like, and I was not offended actually, but I was like, am I old enough to be a ma'am? Like, don't call me ma'am.
I think any adult woman or adult male can be sir or ma'am.
Yeah, I
And
guess.
honestly, if I was in my early 20s and someone had called me sir, yeah, I would have probably been like, I'm not old enough to be sir. But looking back now,
Yeah.
if somebody had called me sir, and I'm looking back now, I'm like, that means I'm being respected as an actual adult.
Yeah.
Because I am an adult now.
I definitely, like, I use that term, like, out in, like, general, like, you know, whatever. But I also do a lot of terms of endearment. Like, I'll be like, oh, excuse me, hon. Like, so I say stuff like that. And I'm more likely to do that than to, like, say ma'am, I think.
This has gotten way off the rails.
Yeah.
We're on a new topic.
I think. Okay, so if you say sir or ma'am, put in the comments below.
Anyway,
that is all that we have for you today, I think. Anything else random that we wanted to talk about?
yeah, if you don't subscribe to our YouTube channel, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel.
That we never plug our YouTube, but that's the second plug in this episode.
This is like, this lives on YouTube.
It does live on YouTube.
In Vizio format.
In what?
Vizio, I was going to say.
Vizio?
My worditude was broken.
Vizio is a thing though, isn't it?
It's a brand of TV.
Oh, okay.
That kind of sucks.
Okay.
Anyway.
Fotshired. If you know, you know.
Better catch up on podcasts. This podcast lives in video form on YouTube. So if you're
Yes.
listening to this and you want to see our lovely faces, her lovely face, my just meh face, it balances.
It balances.
It
What?
balances to a neutral.
You have a nice face.
Okay. Anyway, go over to podcast and watch the YouTube. Go over to YouTube and watch the podcast.
Oh my God.
I'm losing it. Go
We're
subscribe
done
to
for
our
the day.
podcast. F&A.
All right, guys, go subscribe to our YouTube channel.
done.
We'll see you on the next one. Peace.